Sorry for the delay, uni exams, you know how it is. The season has ended by now, but I'm still gonna complete the reviews with the same format. Episode 21 adapts chapters 94 and 95. Mixed feelings on this one. The first half was the most important part and more attention was obviously paid to it. You can see it's not perfect, but they tried. It looks rough but with effort to it. Good but out of model, maybe? At the same time, some shots attempted to follow more the manga than the anime style, which I do appreciate. The wide noses especially for the kettles, which previous episodes have abandoned as far as I remember. Some odd mistakes here and there. Sometimes the episode makes the characters fatter, like look at Sverkel, he's not supposed to be that chunky, not at all actually. And later Drott, he doesn't have a belly, he's lean buff. This is the biggest insult Drott the Bear Killer has ever suffered. And I'm gonna say, I guess like typical anime, there is some overacting as I see it. Maybe it's just my preference, but still, I liked the sequence. I felt the emotion. I thought it was handled really well for the most part. Olmar confronted with the ugly part of what he glorified, his part in causing it, the immense weight of responsibility bearing down on him. How is he supposed to handle it when he couldn't even cut a pig? Also, really well adapted moment by the way. One moment the anime failed to emphasize is Thorgil's motivations here. He's a glory seeker. He never had the interests of his family in mind, only how their image reflects and complements his. Sure, his actions were justified back in Yelling as far as society at the time is concerned. But does that make Thorgil any better at all? Of course he would follow the rules and guidelines that make him look great, but he won't see anything beyond that, the disaster he also brought to his family. All his small manipulations that further doomed them, that's not how the annals of history will remember Thorgil. No, it's gonna be the righteous warrior that stood against the tyrannical king and protected all that he held dear. I love how manipulative Thorgil gets. First he guilt trips Olmar and then he sees it didn't go the way he wanted, so he completely changes attitude. He tries both the carrot and the stick. On the topic of bravery, is what Thorgil and Kettil did brave? I mean, at least Kettil did something he feared, instead of something he feared more, but Thorgil straight up isn't afraid of dying or hurting. He has absolutely nothing to lose, this is everything he has ever desired. Calling it bravery is like giving me a cake and congratulating me after I ravage it. Bravery needs fear to be bravery. It's a form of mental strength. Why would it be the brave option for Olmar to fight? I mean, yeah, he's afraid of dying, but you know what he's afraid of much more? Disgrace, being humiliated, the way he's perceived. And in that kind of stress, his immediate action, how he instinctively shielded himself, was violence. That was the cowardly option. Instead of acknowledging the situation and the consequences, reality in general, and taking it head on. To a lot of people, their pride is more important than their life. To some, more important than others' lives. Olmar chooses to be a great person instead of posturing as a great person. And as soon as the choice is made, Thorgil stops pretending to care and fucks off because he doesn't stand to gain anything from this. The second part of this episode, boy it was rough. Worst production ever since episode 16 of season 1. Oof, moments like this is when the thought passes through my head. I'm so glad I really mostly care about the manga. I mean, I didn't much care for most of the content here because a lot was anime original / not that major, but still. Drott was done dirty. He has definitely never before in history been so disrespected. The anime has a lot of differences cause the scene that hasn't happened yet, and also Leif has talked to Thorfinn instead of Einar chasing down Thorfinn after he leaves to find Canute. And there's some anime-only stuff that I actually appreciate. Both this and the previous season have added some Leif-Thorfinn content near the end, and referenced a story Leif told in the beginning of the series. In the season 1 original content, Leif tries to bait Thorfinn using his obsession, his father and their honor, something he's told by Norse society he should care about, and Thor's fascination with Vinland, and Leif does that by also explaining to Thorfinn how he has made a similar oath with him to Thor's, but in the end Thorfinn doesn't stay and doubles down on his path of revenge. In this season, Thorfinn isn't moved by such an obligation or a duty he thinks he has, but something bigger than that. Something that he has decided himself is right, that he should pursue. And Leif lets him go, also giving up on his oath and understanding what's more important. Neat stuff. Thorfinn looks suitably meek here, but also less determined and more half-assed compared to the manga, which I dislike. Thorfinn feels like he's lost here. I do think Thorfinn's expressions is something the anime's art hasn't captured too well in this sequence, but it's fine if the motivations and the point of this are communicated well in what the fuck is this? Kettil? Kettil accepted you? Didn't forsake you? Why the fuck would he? You're making him money. You're doing this in part because you're grateful to Ketil? Should Arnheid have been grateful to Ketil? I mean, he definitely accepted her. Oh, that's not what they mean, it's just Thorfinn is confused. That's exactly what that would imply. If they didn't think about it, about basic fucking morals around one of the central topics of this season, that smells like rank writing to me. Observe the presentation. They did not make this as a Thorfinn is confused and uncertain about what he believes and wants to be a better person, but he's making small little mistakes. No, there won't be a follow-up scene of Thorfinn acknowledging this. This is a look at Thorfinn, he's choosing not to hate and look at the good side of things. Isn't this admirable? Scene. Just cause it looks positive and nice and they didn't mean that, doesn't make the actual implications of the dialogue better. The writing of this scene is just blatantly ignorant about what it just said and promoted. It's hilariously making the exact mistake, not seeing direct aggression from Ketil at this point, so the fact that they're slaves to him is neutral. Oh, at the time it was perceived. The series presents what it is with its messaging. Simply not assigning any responsibility to protect Ketil and removing any gratefulness from Thorfinn here, but having him say, even after all he's done, I don't think he deserves this, would fix this issue and would have carried the theme way better too. There's also smaller issues like Thorfinn being more of an emotionless Viking Jesus. If you can't even bring yourself to hate Ketil, is it really that admirable that you chose to protect him? Great role model, just be unfazed. Overcoming emotions? No. Can't show good boy Thorfinn being angry? That's certainly not 100 times more interesting. I mean, in the next episode, he tells Einar not to look in the chance they see Patter's body, cause that will make them angry at Canute and not think reasonably. Great moment, by the way. Good adaptation too. Short and poignant. In the manga, as they're going to Canute, Einar says that Ketil deserves to have his head lopped off after what he did to Arnheid, and then Thorfinn reminds him that Pater and Sverker's lives are at stake too. Fine, forget about Ketil. Funny thing is, at some point in the series, Thorfinn says a line like this. So yeah, I think this small scene not only is badly written in an unsavory way, and also ugly, but also makes Thorfinn's character a little bit less interesting and relatable, and a bit dumber actually for no reason. And we've been doing so well with the latest anime-only stuff, the one rearrangement that I had no issue with. Anyway, at this point, Thorfinn is probably frustrated with his failure regarding Gardar and is bent on trying his absolute hardest to find the first resort. Einar understands this and stops Snake from intervening, so Thorfinn can make his point and do what he thinks he needs to. There's obviously some parallels here with the pride and ridicule discussed in the first half of the episode. Thorfinn puts himself in a degrading position to do what's right. He doesn't go down with one punch, and that's apparently the biggest disrespect Drot the Bear Killer has ever suffered. Episode 22 adapts chapters 96 and 97. Looks fantastic. You know, I think we've overhyped Kobayashi a bit too much, because at points his episodes are so far above those around them, but there's actually a bunch of episodes that rival them. Like 15, probably my favorite adapted episode of this season. This one also being a great example. Look, it even has the hard shadows I've been bitching about this whole time. 100 punches happen, and this can be a contentious plot point, Thorfinn being a role model and all. The average person can't do this. This isn't an option in real life. And I think it's important to separate the valuable, practical life advice Vinland is selling from the entirety of Thorfinn's character. You know, the self-sacrifice with a little regard for oneself, the strength of the character so his non-violence is a choice. All these need to be there, and some may not be entirely positive even in Thorfinn's written arc. This is the series being indulgent after it has fully earned it with this arc. That's why I cringe a little bit when people refer to this part as one of the best in Vinland Saga, because yes, it is, like the quote, an encapsulation of the arc he's gone through, a celebration, but it doesn't really say anything interesting itself. Thorfinn is just tired of the bullshit and the justifications and the bravado, the pointlessness of all these men fighting here for this feud these two dudes have, the absurdity of him needing to beat someone to negotiate for peace. It's a sobering and cathartic moment in this absurdity. And yes, Snake is talking bullshit. They did not try at all to solve this another way. But of course, there are actual reasons for all this, Canute's reasons. And that's why they need to talk to him. Also, Thorfinn acting angry is always fun. I do think he's mostly acting. Also, he looks way less beat up in the anime. I've noticed that the anime struggles drawing people really beat up. It didn't look too good in season 1 either. Okay, rapid fire thoughts. This dialogue, you have the face of a man in power, and you sound just like Askeladd, are criminal omissions. This Einar shot hits so much harder in the manga. Wow, Einar is super angry here. All of this Einar dialogue is pure catharsis. Get that fucker Canute. Thorfinn and Canute size, the original panel is meant to show Thorfinn looking at Canute's scar, but it's kind of an odd pair of panels, easy to misinterpret I guess. The scar focus is a reminder for why Canute is hesitant to meet with Thorfinn again, plus what value would anything that comes out of prologue Thorfinn's mouth have? I bet you've never held a hoe in your life, another criminal omission. Einar in the manga sasses Canute's motivations out, I love how Canute tries to bullshit them, by claiming Olmar couldn't possibly have killed someone on his own, which makes sense for Einar to know that after their little encounter in episode 3. Also, this is a real historical anecdote, Canute attempting to stop the waves and showing the limits of his power. It's so funny to me that it's in here. Hey, isn't that story cool? Actually, my OC Thorfinn was there right out of frame, really. And Canute was giving him the fuck eyes. True story, you should have been there. So this is what I'm thinking about when people talk about different interpretation. Usually the anime's feel is just kind of a lamer version of what I would expect. I don't get this different angle people are seeing. Here it's more distinct though. They didn't go for the emotional piano for the 100th time, they went for the weirdo shit. The creepy dream music? And that, as a manga reader that prefers the manga, I can appreciate. It's a distinctly different flavor, I got something out of it. Okay, time for a little analysis. Canute fighting God and Canute saving the Vikings. The rules God has ordained, the natural order. To sin and lose one's way, violence and conflict. That is humanity's nature after it forsaked God's love. Those are God's rules, and under those rules humans will suffer. For humans to escape that suffering, they need to escape their nature. They need to change. That is Canute's fight. Saving the Vikings means changing them, their culture. Using the fallen humanity's birthright to do so. So, through immense violence, Canute seeks to escape God's natural order and create a new one for humans, a paradise. Simple enough? That is the thing Thorfinn cannot do through his means. Why he wants to leave to Vinland. Vikings, like we've seen multiple times in previous episodes, people like Thorgil or Drott the Bearfucker, or any of these guys only accept strength and follow strength. To lead them to change, you have to slowly push them to that through force and power. I think I made that brief enough. To continue the analysis, I need to get a bit into the next episode. One more and I'm free. See you when I'm done with it.